And now on Tucson Business Radio, let's find out how to be healthy, wealthy, and wise with your host, Karen Fisher.
Good afternoon and welcome to this month's broadcast of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. I am Karen Fisher, our hostess, if you will, broadcasting live from the Tucson Business RadioX, which is located in the studio, the Tucson Business RadioX studio, which is the top floor of the Stewart Title Building. And we have three fabulous guests to help make your life a little healthier, wealthier, and wiser, all collectively. And so I'm just gonna do popcorn. I'm gonna introduce. I can't even talk today. This is all good. Introduce Diana Longback, who is here as one of the board members for 100 Plus Women Who Care of Tucson. But in her superhero day job, in addition to being a mom, she's also a financial advisor with the Thrivent Financial Group. So welcome. Go ahead and say hello.
Hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Diana, and I am very pleased to say that, yes, I was one of the founding members of 100 Plus Women Who Care. And that's, I think, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today.
Yes, at length. And the impact is so huge. I was actually your founding board member, and I'm actually I'm the first sponsor for 100 Plus Women Who Care. I came in immediately, saw the impact and thought to myself, oh my gosh, 1 hour, super simple. Let's just make it happen. It's great. And we are coming up on
We've been doing it for 4 years now.
So this is going to be our 17th big give.
That's right.
And so do you know, I think it's like over $260,000 we've given back to the community so far.
I think it might be a little bit less, but who's counting?
Yeah, well, we're counting. Actually, the numbers are there, but I
think it was around 240, 250.
240, 250, okay. But still, think about that. Just huge. Because Tucson's a very giving community. So welcome. We're going to have some fun.
Thank you.
And then I have Hubert Johnson here, who he has, you have a job that you interact with most people on a regular basis that would scare the bejesus out of everybody, which is dealing with the IRS on a regular and continual basis. So welcome. You are a tax attorney, and tell us a little bit about how you came back to Tucson and your information and what you do in your everyday life.
Well, I came to Tucson for family reasons, and I'm very pleased with the schools, with the community, and I love what I do. I really help save businesses. I help people, individuals, find out what the best way is to deal with their taxes and resolve it and give them peace of mind. The IRS is very scary and stressful, and I take that and deal with it for clients and customers.
So this is super fantastic. And the other thing is that you're very involved also in the community because you're actually a coach. You have, tell me about as far as when you're not fighting, doing battle with the IRS or helping to get people's messes straightened out, what do you do in your spare time?
Well, I do a lot of volunteering for Little League, for soccer, for basketball. I've coached. This is my 14th season.
14th. Wow.
14th, which means I know enough to be dangerous. But, I look for other ways to volunteer. This morning I was volunteering with Junior Achievement, helping to teach a fourth grade class. And that's an amazing program as well.
Oh, I love JA. What school were you at today?
La Paloma Academy.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, Junior Achievement for those entrepreneurs. My goodness, get your kids involved. And if you're an entrepreneur yourself, please volunteer. It is an amazing organization. If you want to talk about what is going to change poverty at the very roots level, let's talk about getting people some great jobs. And entrepreneurs are, that is the fastest growing segment in the business world right now. And then we have our very own from Tucson, Barbara McClure, who is with Impact. And tell us a little bit about the foundation. A lot of people are familiar with it, but tell us more.
Well, we're a social service nonprofit, and we're moving people out of poverty, stabilizing families, doing all kinds of things to improve the community. And we're in our 20th anniversary year.
It's just unreal to think 20 years, because I first, how did you guys start? What was the behind the scenes?
Well, we're located up in Catalina, so we're a rural community. And I think what happened was there were a lot of snowbirds and retirees who moved in, and it was way up 20 years ago, town ended at Ina.
Oh, yeah.
So people got together and they said, we need to do something to help the people in this local community. So we started out just servicing Catalina, and then we grew, and now we're servicing most of Tucson, Marana, Sabino Canyon, and the Copper Corridor up in Pinal.
That's huge. So to give us a few of the statistics that I know as far as the impact. I mean, I know I can read them, but tell us a little bit more, because when you really hear this, it's unbelievable.
Well, this being our 20th anniversary year, we have already invested over $22 million in the community.
Think about that, $22 million.
And many people have not even heard of us because we're located so far north in Pima County that people don't realize we're even up there. So it's really a nice opportunity to get on the radio. Thank you, Karen and Mark, and letting us let people know what we do. So we're there for people who are predominantly low income, moderate income, but we offer so many different kinds of programs like food, clothing, things to stretch their budgets. So in the last 20 years, we've given out over $10,850,000 worth of food. And,
that's unbelievable.
and we served senior meals to homebound seniors. So we've done over 169,000 meals to seniors. So the statistics are forever. We're going to celebrate them all year long. So you can see them posted on Facebook and things like that.
I just think it's, what I love about Tucson. I'm actually a Phoenix native, came to school personally at the U of A, and met my husband, thought he was perfect for my best friend. I was playing matchmaker, and then oh, wait a second. We just celebrated our 37th wedding anniversary, but we had gone back to Phoenix for school. We were there for 14 years and then had the opportunity to come back to Tucson in 94. My husband actually had 4 job offers on the table at the same time. One of them was moving to San Francisco, working for Daimler-Benz, and I'm like, I don't do earthquakes. So we'll start there. The other was New Jersey, and just being from the West Coast, I didn't know anything about New Jersey other than I didn't want to go there. It sounded cold, really cold. And then the third was Dallas. Dallas was actually a distinct possibility. Actually, we actually did a house hunting trip there, and then the job offer came to be able to move back to Tucson. And it was like a no-brainer because Tucson is such a giving community. It is a great place to, our daughter at the time, she was 3. It's a phenomenal place to raise your family. And just that spirit of giving, the way that Tucson is, from both the arts to helping other people. I mean, it's unheard of. I know, like Diana, one of the things that we know with 100+ women who care, there's other similar sister organizations throughout the world. It's not just in the United States. Also, I know them in Canada, et cetera. But I remember them telling Desha Beimers Davis, who was the founder, who really started in Tucson, they said, it'll probably get you 2 to 3 years before you can have 100 people. And the very first event, Big Give, there was 167 people in the room. It was unreal.
It was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, Desha was very intentional about creating her leadership team of ladies from every generation, and they reached out to their networks. And the only way I found out about it was from a Facebook post that I just randomly saw and thought, that sounds great. I'm going to go check it out.
Now, did you know Desha from before?
I didn't.
I didn't know that.
I didn't. I walked into the room, I looked around, and it was one of the few times I'd walked around and I didn't know a lot of the women in the room. And I thought, this is amazing. All these women are coming here to learn about how we can become more generous and collectively how to make a big donation. And so after that meeting, I called Desha and said, we need to meet. I want to see how I can help. And soon after was when I became a sponsor. I think it was maybe a couple meetings probably after you did. So yeah, it was amazing.
Well, and tell me a little bit in terms of your company as a financial advisor. I work with a lot of financial advisors. I personally feel that everyone needs a financial advisor, and every financial advisor specializes in different areas. But you've got to, you can't figure it all out by yourself. I think having a coach for your money or your investments or your taxes, like several things that I don't do myself. I don't do my own taxes. Do I know numbers? Do I know tax returns? Yes. Do I do my own taxes? Absolutely not. no way. So tell me a little bit about your company itself, because Thrivent is unique in the way that they help families, and what you can talk about as far as your business.
Absolutely. Yeah. I never imagined in a million years that I would become a financial planner. Never thought about it. And, but when I found out about Thrivent, it was one of my old clients that approached me and said, you need to come work for Thrivent. The big things for me was, one, that it's an organization of Christians. Two, that we give away over 200, I think we're up to $250 million every year. So it's huge.
And are you nationwide, international?
We are nationwide.
Nationwide.
Yep.
Okay.
We have almost 2.4 million members, and we are member owned, and it's a very large company. And we also have been rated one of the most ethical companies of the world, which is huge because, frankly, in this industry, that is questionable sometimes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, so it's been hands down the best decision I could have made, and decided to start a family at the same time as starting my business. So that's been fun.
Oh, so one of those no plates in the air at any given time.
Yes.
Yes.
But it was all in God's timing that we we found out we were having our daughter 3 weeks into starting the business. But I mean, Thrivent has been completely amazing, and it's been the best decision I could have ever made, because they support us doing what's right for our members, not just, selling them whatever commission's going to be the highest. It's just do what's right. So, and plan.
I just think that's huge. So there's a spirit of giving from Thrivent that's at the core, even as a financial advising company.
Absolutely.
And so tell us a little bit about how that, what was it that called to you with 100 plus women? As far as I know, you said you walked in there and you're like, wow, I don't know these people, but tell me more about.
Yeah, no, with the generosity, that part is huge. Part of my planning process is helping my clients to be generous, whether that's their time, their talents, or their treasures, whatever that looks like for them. And when I saw 100 plus women, how it's so simple, where we meet once a quarter, and for 2 hours or 1 hour if you don't want to come for the social time, but the social time's fun.
Yeah, that's
so.
I like the social time. Sure.
And you agree to give $100, and collectively, if we have, the first meeting was 160. I think the first give was about a little over 15,000, and our last big give was $24,500. So we have, nearly 250 members times $100. That's a huge amount. And that was my thing was, this is so simple that, people can do it. They can afford to take 2 hours of their time every quarter to do this, because we're all busy.
A lot of the members, if they're not there, because it's automatic, yes, it's 100 that you actually give. They've got like $5 processing charge for the credit cards. But if you're not able to be there, then yes, maybe you don't get to vote that night, but you would collectively say, it goes to whoever is the majority winner. And so for our listeners first of all, let's talk about our next big give is in October.
Yes.
Where we meet at the Westin La Paloma, and it is October the 10th, correct?
Correct.
So starts at 5:30. So 5:30 to 6:30 is the happy hour. Social happy hour. Lots of laughter, very loud noise in there. Even though it's La Paloma with lots of things, there's a lot of excited people in there. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
It's very loud. And then the next hour, very specifically timed, and just to let you know how it works, is there are 3 vetted charities that get pulled out of a hat. Technically, it was a Nambe Bowl, but I think the Nambe Bowl grew legs somehow.
Yep,
I think we don't know where the Nambe Bowl ended up, but 3 vetted charities, and we've got on our on the leadership team highly recognized and rated CPA Julie Kleur is the CPA that vets the financials. You have to be a 501(c) for 2 years or greater to be, and a member needs to nominate you to be put in the hat or the bowl.
Correct.
And then 5 minutes that you pull the 3, 5 minutes they talk about what the organization is, what they would do with the money, and then 5 minutes of question and answers. And then at the end of that, so that's basically you've got 30 minutes, and then they vote. And then that night, everybody has made the decision as far as who is going to be the next recipient. The cool part about that, I think, one of the things I think is interesting, so let's say you don't win, the big give. The fact, as a nonprofit, can you imagine saying, I have an opportunity to maybe stand up and speak about my mission in front of 250 or whatever number of people, women,
Sure.
pretty much. There's a
Business
few guys.
leaders.
And they're already givers. They're
Yes.
already philanthropic at heart. So,
Yeah.
great opportunity.
Yeah, so I've learned about some, and it's really been interesting to me on a personal basis that a lot of the nonprofit winners happen to actually be qualified for the tax credit. So it didn't even cost the last, I think, 3 or 4. It didn't even cost any. It really, if you've got Arizona taxes, it didn't even cost you anything to give. It's just crazy. And then you had an opportunity with Desha as far as the founder. Somebody nominated her. Tell me how that happened. There was a Women of Impact luncheon that.
Yeah, we have an annual luncheon to celebrate women in the community who are making a big difference. And so what we did was we had our first luncheon a few years ago, and Desha was one of our keynote speakers because we wanted to introduce a room full of women to this great organization.
I didn't realize that part as a keynote speaker. She's a great speaker.
Oh, she is a great speaker. And then, of course, ever since I was there at that luncheon, I thought, I need to join that organization because it's the most amazing model. And I even called my daughter-in-law who lives up in Seattle, and I said, you should start a chapter in Fremont. So there is one in Seattle, of course. But it was just a neat opportunity to meet Desha and learn more about the organization. So I, too, joined just the other night after talking to you.
Yeah.
I was saying to Diana, I keep thinking to do it. I'm going to do that. And every quarter runs around, and I think, oh, gosh, darn it, there goes another part of the year. So.
Yeah, no, it is really huge. So, well, in terms of some of the things that Impact is doing, one of the things, what's in store for the 20th? Think about that, 20 years of an organization giving back, and the numbers are staggering. Absolutely staggering.
Well, I think for us, it's just an opportunity to really share with the community impact, the collective impact, because we rely on a lot of volunteers, a lot of donors, a lot of community partners. We only have a dozen staff members, less than a dozen. We're at 10 or 11. We're about to hire a social worker. But we have 170 volunteer shifts every week.
Oh,
so
my
it
gosh.
takes hundreds of people to do what we do. It is. So we totally rely on other people. And we have this huge connection to the community. So we go out and we bring in community partners to do all kinds of things. Even in our food bank, we give out this extra bonus bag of food. And we get community businesses to come in and sponsor an item. So we give out 500 bags a month, for example. So Wendy Weiss is a State Farm insurance agent up in Oro Valley. And because her color is red, she offered to give us 500 cans of tomatoes one month. So everybody that came to the food bank got in their bag an extra bag of tomatoes, an extra can of tomatoes.
Gosh.
So it's really fun to connect the community because what she did was she had a drive in her office. So she got her vendors and her customers and the neighbors in the strip mall to come in and participate. So it's just a way to get more people engaged. So we really engage the entire community.
That is huge. So what was the way that Impact started? How did it start? You've been there for about 10 years, correct, as an executive director?
Yes.
But and you talked about where it got started, but who was it that said, we're going to do this?
Well, really, it was a group of people who lived up in Catalina area, and they got together with Pima County and wrote a grant. And actually, we were started with a $25,000 grant from Pima County, from the outside agency program. So
That's
that was a nice
fantastic.
way to get started. And then we've just grown leaps and bounds. We started in a little slump block house on a piece of state land trust. It was really funny. The master bedroom was the food bank, and then we gutted the bathroom, and you would slide the window open in the bathroom, and somebody had nailed a wooden shelf on the back, and people would walk up, and you'd get your food that way. So,
Oh my gosh.
I know. But we partnered again with them in 2010, and the Golden Ranch Fire Department sold us a piece of property, their original headquarters that they'd outgrown and moved out of, for $1. And the Impact volunteers and the community put up $500,000. And with some stimulus money at the time in 2008, plus some extra money from the county, we built this beautiful building. And so we're now in a $10,000 property or 10,000 square foot property instead of a little slump block house.
That is,
and we're putting in about $2.5 million a year back into the community. So,
well, that is fantastic. And what are you seeing as far as with the needs, as far as with struggling families? Like, what can people do to help?
you know, I think some of the biggest issues are not even really the people who are in the lowest poverty position, but it's the people who fall in that gap where they make enough money to disqualify them from a program, but it's not enough money to make the ends meet. So our programs are really designed to kind of stretch their budgets. So when we give them food and clothes, it's not really about feeding the hunger and putting shirts on their backs, but it's really about teaching them how to budget their money and then to spend their earned income on things like rent in a better neighborhood or maybe to keep the heat on in the wintertime. So it's really a whole skill set too. We're about to hire a social worker who's going to help them develop individual pathways out of poverty.
Well, and one of the things that I am passionate about is reaching out on a personal basis, and I want to talk a lot about, to Hubert, as far as the impact of this with your taxes, but teaching people about credit. I teach credit classes both at the high school, I've taught it at Pima College as well as at the U of A, and the interesting thing is, I have told people this, especially my high school students. Of course, the teachers don't necessarily like it when I say, they kind of look at me and I said, there's one more score that's more important than your ACT or your SAT score, and that's your FICO score. And I'm going to give you the combination. I repeat this a lot, but I'm going to say it right now on the show again, is that the combination to great credit, if you think of these numbers, it's 2, 31, 7. And what I mean by that is that it takes 2 years to build credit, 31 days, we're talking one missed payment to destroy it, and 7 years to clean it up. And I tell my students that I've taught, I don't want to ever have to see that you're in that 7-year issues. And there's very specific things that you can do to protect your credit score and things like that. But the credit score, what I have found, and I think it's absolutely horrific, that some of the most predatory lending, the payday loans, et cetera, the people who can least afford these the usury rates, but the usury laws went away, but 300 and 400 and 600%.
It doesn't even seem possible that it's legal. I
Yes,
just think it's
it
the
is.
strangest thing.
It is. It's very, very strange. And
I do have some really exciting news for you.
I
if you
want
don't
exciting
know this.
news.
The legislature just passed a rule this year, a law, that all high school students will be required to take financial literacy courses. And they're not just management. It's not how to keep a checkbook and keep track of your debit cards expenditures, but it's how to build credit, protect credit, and all those kinds of things that nobody learns. If you don't have a mentor, you're just out there spending money and, what do you put on a credit card and what do you not?
Yeah.
So Kimberly Yee, our state treasurer, was the advocate for this program. She started it last year. So now all the kids who are in high school will have to take that class to graduate.
Well, and I actually had the honor of meeting Kimberly Yee at the Girl Scout Luncheon Award that they just did recently. And there's what is exciting is that she involved, first of all sides of the political aisle. We'll start there. Then she involved business as well as the legislature. And the one thing that I thought was really interesting for the state of Arizona is how healthy she's responsible for investing the money that the state has. Like, if you can go online and see, and it is very, very healthy, very impressive in how fiscally responsible she has been for the investments and things like that. But she was talking about that. And so there's a group of people that within Tucson that we've already said, we're in, help us. How can we teach you? Because if they can get the correct information, there's a lot of misinformation that's out there. And speaking about misinformation, you're being so nice. He's the poor minority in the sorority right now. But talk to us about, right now we're coming up on the deadline for the late filers, which is October the 15th. Tell me what you see. One of the things that can have a devastating impact on somebody's budget, so there's no money to give anywhere or to do anything, is getting sideways with their taxes, both the Internal Revenue Service or any of the states.
And that's what I see a lot is, just to go with the financial literacy part. I help individuals and small businesses all the time that don't have basic financial literacy. So it is so important to teach them, and I do what I can. But most of my clients, I teach them how to pay their taxes, how to make safe estimated tax payments and pay those regularly. But also I put them in contact with professionals, like both the professionals in this room, to help them long term. It really does help turn people's lives around when I come in and fix a problem. If I don't help educate them and put them in contact with others that can, they're going to be right back in the same boat. But again, the IRS and the states are actually worse than the IRS, believe it or not.
They are. It's including the state of Arizona. They're probably very aggressive with.
They are more aggressive, and even the IRS, especially in 2019, has stepped up their collections. What used to take them 6 months to when someone owed a debt and started getting letters, it used to take 6 months to 9 months for the IRS to start taking collection actions. It's now down to 2. So they've made, for better or worse, I would say worse, but they've made a lot of changes to their system where they're being a lot more aggressive. And what kills me is when people make decisions. It's like when they make financial decisions. When they make decisions regarding their taxes and they are not properly informed, when they don't know what their rights, and they can hurt themselves so much. I had one gentleman file 23 years of tax returns when the IRS could only go back 6 years.
Oh, gosh.
So he had been a non-filer
for 23 years.
For 23 years, and he felt...
Well, he felt compelled to go get caught up with the IRS and filed going all the way back to 1986. But those taxes were assessed around February, and the 10-year clock on those didn't start running till February of 2019. They won't expire till around 2029.
Oh, my gosh.
I just told him, I wish you would have called me first. And after he picked his jaw up off the floor, it was a devastating moment, but that's why I love for people.
Did he file them himself, or did he have a professional, somebody quote unquote professional helping him?
No, he filed them themselves, but like you said, there's so much misinformation out there. The IRS itself will tell people all the time that you need to file 10 years of returns, and that is incorrect.
Oh, so tell us some other things that we find as far as that. What happens? People get letters from the IRS, and I'm telling you, they freak out. They freak out.
Well, they should be freaking out to some extent. The IRS normally doesn't come and seize assets. They hate to do it, but they will if you ignore them long enough. The main thing I suggest to people is come get some free advice. I do a free tax consultation. I love it when people call and just get some free advice. And the problem is a lot of people feel like they go and they call somebody, they talk to a salesman, they're in a pressure situation. I give free advice so people know where they stand. They know where to go and how to make a decision. And sometimes it isn't right now. Sometimes it is go talk to this person. A lot of times I refer a lot of business to financial planners, to CPAs, and put them in the right hands. It was mentioned earlier to do the right thing by your client. That is so important to really, truly helping people in the long term.
It's huge. What are you seeing in terms of with businesses? Because the Tucson Business RadioX, what happens we have as far as our business personnel that are listening and things like that. So what do you see some of the mistakes? So I can tell you what I see as a loan officer that are the mistakes is that improper filing. Like they don't have the correct classification. They're doing really interesting things that can't be backed up, such as mileage. Yeah. One of the big things. I see a lot of clawbacks with that. Also, I had a client that came in and he had owned an investment property for 3 or 4 years, never claimed any of the income and therefore didn't send the tenant what he's legally responsible for doing as far as the rents that have been collected. So it was a mess, and I'm informing him. I said, well, you have to fix it, not just for the loan, but this is a problem. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I mean, he had no idea of such a thing as called Schedule E, and he was doing TurboTax as far as information.
If you have anything but the simplest return, I hear people all the time that have used, not to talk bad of TurboTax, but to talk bad of them.
Okay. You're an attorney. You can say that.
If you have anything but the most simplest return, you really need to be talking to a CPA. And I have plenty that I refer to that don't charge you. Don't end up paying much more money, and you get much better advice. And CPAs are like doctors. It's okay to get a second opinion. I absolutely recommend getting a second opinion because even with CPAs, there's good CPAs and bad CPAs. So going out and getting right information is very important. And when you have these messes, the IRS is more interested, and their policies are geared to favoring people that get it cleaned up moving forward. The IRS would much rather you learn from your mistakes, you correct them, and then they'll make a deal with you on the past due taxes most of the time and give you time to pay them. But they want to make sure you're not going to continue to have the problem moving forward. And people that I've seen plenty of people that pay their past due taxes and don't stay current on their current year taxes. And those are the businesses that get shut down and get their doors padlocked.
Yes. We have definitely seen that. There's a lot of places in Tucson, and that's part of the problem and one of the reasons why we started the show, which, by the way, this is Karen Fisher. I am a senior loan officer with Summit Funding, and I am your hostess. This is a regular monthly podcast that you can download, you can forward it, you can do other things, and we're broadcasting live from the studio right here off of Broadway in Tucson. It's actually in wet Tucson. Usually it's sunny Tucson. Sun came out. I think we were going to swim here on Monday and Tuesday. Talked to some friends of mine who are insurance agents. In fact, Don Cox, one of the gentlemen, has been a guest on our show before. And yeah, there are lots of phone calls to the insurance companies, which, by the way, so I just want to say, so Diana, a couple of other things, just as far as some things about 100 Plus Women Who Care. You came here as a spokesperson for the organization, but how can somebody get involved, and what can we do? And what do you see what you see as far as helping us to help our community?
Well, I think the first step to getting involved is to really just look us up online, 100 Women Who Care Tucson.org, and look at us up on Facebook. See the organization, see what we do, and really just come and visit us on October 10th, again at the Westin La Paloma.
And you don't need to join to come October 10th. Just come and, at the very least, have happy hour, right? Yeah?
Yeah, be a guest, come have some appetizers, and just meet all the women. And luckily, the women there are so great, and there's so many women that we can meet. And I think that's the biggest step to really getting involved is just come and check us out. And, you're going to get welcomed. Usually I'm one of the people signing people up if they decide they want to join, because that's part of how I volunteer my time there as well. And that's
you're very good with the computer. It shows. For me, it's like there's a lot of things I do well, but being the technical support person is not one of them. I'm not my skill set.
I'm glad I fooled you.
Yes. Oh, good. That's good.
Yes. No, it's great just to be there and to know that, when you walk away, you just feel like, wow, I gave 100, but together we gave almost $25,000.
Yes. And
one huge thing for me is I've been able to learn about so many nonprofits that I may not have learned about. And through Thrivent, we give back a ton of money to nonprofits, and my clients are always asking me, hey, well, this is the cause that I'm passionate about. Do you know of any nonprofits that support this cause? And I'm able to share that from the things that I've learned at 100 Plus Women, which is fantastic.
I think that's huge. One of the other things that I thought was very, very interesting is that one of the recipients of the Big Give was the diaper bank. And the diaper bank, what was huge, I mean, there's such a need with the Southern Arizona Diaper Bank, but we turned the funds that they had, so get this, they had I believe it was from the Huggies Foundation, Huggies Corporation, had the ability to bring in 1 million diapers. And the greatest need in our community that I learned was for adult diapers. 1 million diapers. The issue is they said you just got to pay for shipping.
And wasn't it $1 million worth of diapers?
You know what? You're right. Because it wasn't just 1 million diapers. No.
It was
because
$1 million
shipping,
worth of.
Yes. And so the shipping cost were over $20,000 with the reduced shipping. That cool. Big gift donation are close to 20. It was over 20,000 at that point. Translated into over $1 million.
Exactly.
And
then we'd like to thank you too, because we are an agent of the diaper bank, and out of our clothing bank, we give free diapers to we have 2,000 people who come use the clothing bank, and we give diapers and incontinence. So you also helped us.
That's amazing.
Isn't that fun?
That's what's so
community.
amazing. I mean, you think about that. So it's huge. I mean, it is really, really huge. So let's talk about going forward. What are some of the things that, so just popcorn in here as far as what do you say, I wish people would know this, either about you, about the charity you support, or the IRS, if you will, and the state of Arizona. All of those.
I think the big thing is for me is I wish people would know that it's okay to come to a big event with a lot of ladies there and still be an introvert. Because sometimes people are scared to because there's so many people there, but it's okay to go and, just take a risk to come out because it's great. The feeling that you get from that is huge when you leave. So.
Well, and one of the things that I love about the format is while they're tallying the votes, we get to see what impact the money had with the previous recipient. We actually have Bobby and Elisa Francis, who their business from their movie producers and videographers and things like that. They volunteer their time, and they've actually gone and interviewed the recipients and have told the video stories of how our money has impacted them. It's been,
and the videos are tremendously done.
Oh yeah.
They're just amazing.
If you have dry eyes, I don't know if you're living, to be honest with you. So.
And you also got to meet amazing members of the community, real leaders of the community, and to me, rubbing those elbows has been amazing, helping me in my own business, but also serving others around me.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So tell me a little bit more about your coaching and the volunteering that you do with your kids and things like that. Well, you've got a big family. It's blended.
Yes.
And you've got a very busy household. How many, your ages? He's going to rattle them off for us. Oh, this is a test. Here you go. 16,
15, 13, 8, and 5. And I've coached my older kids for years, and now they're in high school or 8th grade, and so they've kind of left Dad behind as far as coaching. Uh-huh. But there's always such a need, and that's the thing. Any nonprofit you're dealing with and looking at, there's such a need. We need coaches, we need umpires, we need referees, we need more people willing to step up, and it's not always easy. I've been cussed out on the field plenty of times.
Oh boy! Yeah.
I'm always right, by the way.
Oh no!
Well, the couple times it's happened, I was right. But it's to me, there's so much you get back. I've been asked a couple times. My wife asked me, "When are you going to stop?" And I said, "When the grandkids are done."
Oh, not just the kids, but the grandkids. I like that. A lifelong coach.
Yes,
it's in my blood, and I've known other people in the same way. You develop this habit of giving to the community, and for me, coaching, not to brag, but we took the Little League championship last year, and there was this one kid that
it's okay to brag on that. That's huge. Are you kidding me?
And this is just one of the younger divisions, but to see the kids really develop and come into their own and gain that confidence. When we did that, we won our championship game 11-1, and we had one kid, the kid we cheered for the most, didn't get a single hit all season, and then smacked a double. And the whole team erupted cheering for him. His dad was thrilled. The kid was thrilled. And it was, he hit in a run or two. And it was, we were more excited about that hit than the other triples, home runs that we got. And it is so neat to see that change and making it such a positive thing for the players.
Well, and I think sports is a great model for business, if you will, as part of that team spirit, camaraderie, and things like that. Our daughter, she'll be 28 this year. I brag about her all the time. She's engaged to be married next August. We're super excited about that. But she actually comes out of her field of study is not a traditional female field of study. She is getting her doctorate in applied mathematics with an emphasis in computational neuroscience. I mean, you can't even hardly fit it on an application somewhere. But she talks about sports, and she's talked about this within academia, that the gift for sports, because she was involved with sports from a very early age, and we actually talked about this at one of our BNI one-to-one meetings, is that she didn't want to do just one sport. She had coaches that were trying to say, just softball or just this or just that. She's like, I don't want to do just that. I like them all. I said, go for it. Like them all. It's fine. You do, you got to stay for the season, but do whatever whatever fuels your heart. But her comment to me was that the sports teaches you how to lose gracefully. Like, how do you lose gracefully? So how do you lose in business gracefully? Sure. Women, I mean, you're in an executive position. I'm on the executive side as far as within my business. And one of the things that I notice is that having a particular sports model has given a gift, because sometimes as women are doing different things in the career world now, they may not necessarily have had that model of, losing with grace, team spirit, that type of sports model that if the sports model is done correctly, coached correctly, but the kids, are you being a good sport? How does that look? Are you being a team player? Can really help. It can help the business.
I think you also learn how to shift strategies. When you're playing sports, you think you're going to go down the field one way in football, and then something happens and suddenly you have to rethink it. And at the last moment, you have to shift a different direction. So I think that's another thing you get out of sports.
Well, now, did you do sports as a girl? Growing up?
Not a lot. But I did, when I was older, I did join a women's soccer team. It was kind of a joke.
Oh, well, that's sports. Yeah.
Well, it is sports. But I thought, this will be a nice social opportunity, and it'll be a, physical fitness kind of thing. And then I lost my Achilles tendon on the first game. So it's just kind of comical. But
that's not comical. That's painful.
Well, it was at the time. It's just kind of like, well, what was I thinking joining a women's soccer team? But then I did field hockey and things like that. We did participate in all the sports.
So field hockey was, where did you grow up? Because field hockey is not so much in Tucson. You don't see field hockey too much here.
True. It was in Southern California.
Okay. Yeah. So many years ago, from a very, very young age, I was a competitive gymnast, and my mom enrolled me in gymnastics because I'm sure just gave her fits because I was a climber. I climbed on everything. And There's a family story she told me many times, told everybody who would listen. I mean, she's passed away. She passed away at a very young age. She was only 66, been 15 plus years ago. But one of the things that she said is that she had made a birthday cake, and I was not to touch the cake. And so she had the cake up on top of the refrigerator. And she comes around the corner, and there I am and I was probably 3 years old, and I am sitting on top of the refrigerator with the cake lid in my hand.
Oh, my gosh.
And my mom is like trying to not scream. She's only 5 feet tall. She really couldn't get me. And she's like saying to my dad, Charlie,
need you in the kitchen.
Come in here. And Dad's in the room. What? I need you. I was like, so she enrolled me in gymnastics to give me, she's like, if you're going to fall, you got to fall right. I mean, that's what's going on. And it was a really good thing, but it was interesting because, you'll see pictures of me and stuff like that. I am blessed with a lot of height. One day I will be 5 feet tall type of thing, but it just, as far as with that model. And then you being the executive director, you're handling staff, okay, but also coordinating volunteers, which you can't exactly fire volunteers. I mean, you can say that you didn't fulfill your agreement or whatever, but it's different. It's not the same as a boss.
Sure.
The boss said,
We're fortunate because I would say our volunteers are so committed to our mission that they are so happy to be there, and they really are good about just doing what needs to be done and following rules. We have a million rules and procedures because we fall under a lot of different authorities. The Pima County Health Department, the USDA, you pick it. There's like 7 different contracts we follow. And then these poor volunteers are like, why is the rule changing? Because one of the contracts changed. Why do we have to do it that way? This is so full of rules, but they understand that the commitment to those rules makes the difference in the community. So we're very blessed to have people who love what they do.
So tell me about, like, as far as like, why do people invest in Impact, or how are you different than other nonprofits? There's some things because you, in so many ways, you support other nonprofits is what it, listed. Yes.
Well, I think one of the things is we are a tax qualified, tax credit qualified organization, so they can take their tax deduction. But I think also it's because we have a really solid financial foundation. So when you were talking about how we started, one of the funny things is we started in our food bank, back in 20 years ago. People would come by and they'd say, hey, here's some food, but we also have this old toaster that we've just replaced. And we're sure some client could use this toaster. So people be like, okay, we'll take the toaster. And then, word gets out, and now you're getting all kinds of things donated. So we ended up having to do garage sales.
Garage sales?
Once a month, we would have a garage sale out of this little slump block house. And people would park. You hear the stories today of people who've lived there a long time, and they said the parking was all the way down Golden Ranch Road, up over the bridge, up into the mountains. And people would walk back and have fun in the garage sale. But we've all had garage sales, right? So when the garage sale's over, what do you have left?
A bunch of stuff
that really people don't want. And then now what are you going to do with it? You put it in the garage for the next garage sale. So this kind of dealing with all of this stuff and all of these little pieces of things, we got together with another nonprofit in our community up in Saddlebrook, and we started a thrift shop. And you've probably heard of it and just don't know whether we're all involved. It's called the Golden Goose Thrift Shop.
Oh, I've heard of it. Yes, I have heard of it, yeah.
It is an amazing place. They're doing $2 million worth of business every year, and they're only open 21 hours a week.
Oh, my gosh.
And because what we did was we set it up as a nonprofit, a membership nonprofit. So there are only 2 members, Impact and Saddlebrook Community Outreach, and we each appoint half of the board, and then they deal with the management and the operations of the thrift shop, but we each get half of the net profits every year. So we get about $600,000 from the Golden Goose every year, so our financial base is really solid. So if you're a donor and you give us a contribution, it's 100% to programs. There's no admin fee taken out of your donation.
So that's huge.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So
I really prefer stores like that really donate back to the community. Not all thrift stores are like that.
No, and our prices are still really fair for the community through the thrift shop because, again, it's a social service related thrift shop supporting us. So that money goes to programs that help kids out of Saddlebrook and into Pinal County, but then it also helps all these people in Tucson. In fact, right now what we're doing is really exciting. We're buying glasses. You're talking about what changes poverty. We have gone on a screening of children in the Copper Corridor, which is that first part of Pinal County, Mammoth, San Manuel, Oracle, and we went all the way up the Copper Corridor and found that 28% of the high school students needed prescriptions. They did not have glasses. And of the preschool to 8th grade, it was 17%. So we came home just stunned that we had just looked at thousands of kids, and we thought, how are we going to break the poverty cycle if these kids come through school and they are not successful in school? So Impact's on a mission to buy eyeglasses for all those children in the next few years.
I'd love that.
Isn't that a fun thing?
Yeah.
Reading is, I'm a huge advocate of reading, and it makes such a huge impact. And, the school, I've worked with classes and kids. When you see that they struggle with reading, how do you teach a kid that is struggling with financial literacy or not reading literacy, and you see those problems in high school too. So I think that is absolutely key, that you're focusing on helping them see, and that reading literacy portion.
Sure. I think it's so important. So we're involved in a lot of different things. We also support our school, our local school. On the other side, we pay for part of their big reading program that they do through their school library, where kids can read, take a test, a comprehension test. And we actually give $135 credit to every teacher in that school, not just the academic teachers, but every teacher. And they can buy $135 worth of academic enrichment materials, and we'll pay them for it.
That's huge, yeah.
So we do so many different things. You really have to go online and check us out at impactsoaz.org because there's so many things, and it's so layered that we can never really express it in a quick
I just think it's
bubble.
huge. And I think coming from that perspective of what do you need, how can I help, when you've got that spirit of giving, and there's an amazing book. Have you read the book Go Givers?
Yes.
Have you had a chance to read it?
I haven't. I'll have to.
It's a simple read, a super simple read, but it is definitely the spirit of what I see Impact doing is the spirit of what I see 100 Plus Women Who Care. This is the radio show for me is an absolute labor of love. I want to get the information out there and help change people's lives, because I promise you, sometimes I look at my clients and I look at what's happening within their bank statements and their tax returns. And keep in mind, as the loan officer, I ask all the questions your mother told you weren't allowed to ask.
And you don't want to tell people if you're not in a good place.
Literally, how much do you have in the bank? How much money do you make? And what's your age? Oh, and by the way, you have to prove it to me. And by the way, jump through all these hoops while you're at it. And so I know it stresses people out. I had a client just before I came into the studio today. She was so worried, and I always, I never share anybody's information. I mean, I'm not sharing any of her personal information, but sure. I'm thinking to myself, here is somebody who was so nervous and so worried. And when I showed her that she could actually do two things and she could be in her own home by the end of the year, she started to tear up. She had no concept that's there. And so I like to tell people, just as, hear what you're saying, don't assume that, first of all, don't assume that the information that you're reading online is correct, A. And B, if it's information from the IRS online, there's multiple interpretations. That's why there are tax attorneys, it's not just a box. And the IRS code, tell me how many pages is it these days now? I saw
it changes every year.
Yeah.
So what I mainly use is what's called the IRM, and I jokingly refer to it as the Bible for the IRS. So they have to follow that, and it's my job to know that better than the IRS.
So what is IRM?
Internal Revenue Manual.
Internal Revenue Manual. Okay.
Most people never hear about it or use it, but that's something I use all the time. And we were talking earlier about approaches. When I'm getting what I want from the IRS, I'm sweet as pie. Because of course I'm getting what I want and they're doing what I want, but it's knowing when they're wrong and you're right, and you have to be right about that.
Well, yeah, that helps. Yes,
That's
that
when,
would help.
I stand up and I go to bat for my clients and fight for them. But I think the education component that you mentioned, and I have clients, I have $1 million cases. I have clients that are homeless. And so really helping to connect them and educate them and turn their lives around, to me, is such an important part of my job. And there are plenty of people that call in and I give them free advice. And I say, just keep my number on mind, and refer me if anybody needs some help. But getting good advice is so key. We had one case where this wasn't my case, another attorney's case, but they went to Vegas with $100,000 in inheritance and blew it.
Oh no.
Gosh, sad.
And they owed the IRS $80,000. How nice do you think the IRS was after that?
No, not at all.
Not very
And there
understanding.
were ways we could have helped them either invest, save that money, put it in an annuity or a 401k, something that we could have helped them keep that as an asset and not have to feel like they had to blow it all. But because they didn't ask first. And the funny thing is, my attorney clients are the worst because attorneys hate to ask.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They don't like to listen. They think they know everything.
They don't want to listen. Yes.
But it's ask and get good advice first. And like you mentioned, as a loan officer, you need that information so you can help them.
Well, one of the biggest misconceptions that's out there in the lending world right now is that if you owe any money to the IRS that you can't get a loan. That's not true. If you owe money to the Internal Revenue Service and you are on a payment plan, we can calculate that payment plan for you. Like it can be calculated and approved and it's fine. So you can be in a repayment plan with the IRS and still get a loan.
Right.
I close 1 to 2 of them a month, literally. But people
that's
don't.
Surprising.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that that's the case. And so one of the things that's happened, the biggest thing that I see that's happened is my clients that have gone from W-2 wage earners to now all of a sudden they're self-employed, 1099 wage earners, and they don't plan for the self-employment tax. That's a biggie. And the other thing that they don't plan for, and you alluded to this earlier, is their quarterly tax payments.
Estimated tax payments. So what are some of your tips as to create that discipline? Because you're technically spending money that's not yours.
That you'll have to give back.
Yes.
Right. And that's the tough part, is for people to understand when they have a profit, it's not a profit until they pay their taxes. So one thing I do that goes above and beyond what most CPAs will advise, if they're having trouble setting aside sufficient estimated tax payments, do it monthly. People are used to paying bills monthly.
That's a great tip.
They're used to setting aside money, and you're giving the IRS a little bit more interest by paying them monthly rather than quarterly. But if it keeps you out of trouble and makes it so you don't have the same problems moving forward, it's worth its weight in gold. And the funny thing is, anything I do or anybody in my industry does for somebody, if the client has problems in the future, it will default to anything we set up. So I really try to go the extra mile with my clients and educate them and set them up so they won't have this problem moving forward. So I consider myself kind of like the, CPAs are more like the dentist. You go for them for regular checkups, make sure everything is fine. If you have a real problem, I'm the root canal specialist.
Oh my gosh.
I like that analogy.
That
is fun.
That's a great analogy. Well, the other thing that I see that clients make a lot of mistakes on is that they don't, so they'll withdraw funds from their 401k.
Retirements.
And in their mind, it's their money.
Yes. We have that with staff even. I mean, in the past where we have a 401k and then the company will match up to 4%. So they even see, that the company's given me this money, but then they take loans out on it. And then they end up having to
repay that.
Right. And if they can't repay it, then they end up having to claim it. And then they're like, I didn't know I was going to owe so much tax just because I used my 401k money.
The penalty for withdrawing IRA, 401k, where you defer the taxes until later, is very high. And honestly, I have quite a few clients that I advise to take loans from their 401ks, but it's for a strategic purpose with the IRS. It locks it up as an asset, and then we can use that as an expense, but that's getting into the weeds. If someone has questions about that, they need to talk to a CPA first. They need to get good advice, and I see plenty of people, they take money out of a retirement account. They use it for medical needs, put their kids through children. There's all kinds of noble and causes that they take their money out for. But if they don't do it right, they ended up paying more. And then the worst thing is I see people, they owe the taxes, then they withdraw from their 401k again to pay the taxes, and then they've got to pay more taxes.
And then they got to pay more taxes.
It kills
it's a cycle. Oh gosh, that's hard.
Well, I am just thrilled that you have been able to be our guest on today's radio show. Can you believe it's already been an hour?
No, that was
It's been an hour.
Went by fast.
It's always a great time. We are incredibly blessed to live in Tucson. It's just an amazing community, and every day we're on a mission to make it better and better and better. I would love to just have you wrap up with a couple of fun things. What is a success story that you've just had? And or it could be that you've had in the past, one of the biggest wows. And what would you like to see happen before the end of the year?
Well, I do offer in compromises or settlements with the IRS, which everybody loves. Not everybody qualifies for it, but if you do, I do settlements as low as $20. And I've had settlements, $200,000-$300,000 that I've wiped out for $20 with the IRS, and the burden it takes off people's shoulders is amazing. It gives me a lot of job satisfaction.
That's huge. That's huge. And before the end of the year, what do you think?
I'm hoping I'll have another 5 or 6.
Good. I love it.
Successful offers.
Okay.
Nice.
And how about you, Barbara?
I think for us, we started a new program recently called MIMS. So over the summer, we've been feeding the families that are on free lunch during the summer because for 14 weeks of school year, they don't have any food. So that was our big deal this year. And so we're looking forward to the Christmas break and the fall break where we're going to feed those families again. So that's kind of a neat thing.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, before the end of the year for me on a personal basis, I am going to be and you'll be able to see it on my website, which is Our Neighbors Are Heroes. That's my my website. But my vision is that I will teach, we've got some people that we're going to teach 3 joint classes on credit and basic budgeting before the end of the year so that come Christmas time, they haven't wiped out any of their savings and done some fun things.
That's a great idea.
So without any further ado, I just want to thank everyone for participating. Again, you're listening to Tucson Business Radio X, and I am your host, Karen Fisher, and we will talk to you next month.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much.